Namaskar everybody and welcome to this Geeta Satsang for today. So let us get started. Let us do the Prarthana first. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Geeta Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the prayers. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Ullara Vindayata Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad Venkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyuta Padambuja Yugma Rugma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadgurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So, with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us move on to our shloka for today. So, in the second chapter, we have been discussing the different shlokas, and in the last class, we had come up to the 25th shloka. So, today we will take shloka number 26 and 27. So, in the 26th shloka, Krishna is continuing to explain to Arjuna. The 26th shloka says, Ata chainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho naivam shochitumarhasi. The translation of this: if, however, you think that the self is subject to constant birth and death, O mighty armed Arjuna, even then you should not grieve like this. So what is it that Krishna is doing now? He has been talking all along and trying to explain to Arjuna what is the nature of the atma, what is the nature of the body, how the body and the atma are two entirely different entities, how the body is subject to change and destruction, but how the atma is never changing, it is always the same and it will always be existing. So Krishna has constantly been trying to explain this to Arjuna, and that is something which is different from the viewpoint of Arjuna. So Krishna has been trying to convince Arjuna that these are two different things, and so you need not feel bad about the imminent death of Dronacharya or Bhishma. Now, here what Krishna does is, he says, okay, fine. Suppose we do assume that your viewpoint is correct. Okay. Then also you should not grieve like this. So what Krishna is trying to say, you think, who is this you? This almighty armed Arjuna. O Arjuna, if you think that the self means the atma he is talking here. If you think that the atma is subject to constant birth and death, and you think that, okay, this atma only is living, this atma only is dying, and like that, even then you need not grieve. That is what he's trying to explain to Arjuna. So he's for a moment taking the side of Arjuna, taking the viewpoint of Arjuna and saying, even if we accept that what you are saying is correct, then also you need not grieve. Now, why you need not grieve, he will explain in the next shloka. But what he's seeing here, what we can understand here is, until this much time, we saw how Krishna tried to explain that Atma is different from body. Now, since Arjuna is looking as though he is not yet convinced, so Krishna uses another approach. He says, for the sake of argument, okay, let us assume that your viewpoint only is true. So what is Arjuna's viewpoint? That Death means Atma also will die. Birth means Atma will be born, Deha is born. Death means Atma is dead, body is dead, Atma is also dead. So suppose you assume your viewpoint, still you don't need to worry, Krishna is saying. Why is this? Because Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, now you know, you are saying that at the time of death, the Atma also is going to die. So you also know that this death is certain and there's nothing that you can do. Everything which is born has to die, right? And everything which is dead once is again going to be born. So you know that death is certain and you know that there is nothing that you can do to prevent that death. Then why do you have to worry over something which is not in your control? This is what Krishna is asking to Arjuna. Now we can assume, the Acharya say, that there is an unspoken question in Arjuna's mind. Now Arjuna may be thinking that, okay, I am worried. Like if I kill Bhishma and Drona, what will happen later? You remember, he has been saying all along that I will go to Swarga, I will go to Naraka and all these kind of things. So he is saying, I don't know. Now, until I am living, I can see what is happening. So I'm not worried about that part. Now, after death, during the time of death, during the actual process of death, what happens? I don't know. After death, what happens? I don't know. And that is why I am worried. This can be the unspoken thought in Arjuna's mind. That if I knew what is going to happen, I would not be worried like this. Because I don't know, I am worried. So now he's kind of saying that I should have known what is going to happen after death of these Bhishma and Drona and everybody. So Krishna is trying to convince him that it is better that you should not know. Because imagine if a person has knowledge and has the memory of all that has happened to them during death and after their death, then what does it imply? That the person will be remembering every single thing of God knows how many janmas that person has taken. And some of those would be in plant life, some would be in animal life, some would be in human life. Can you imagine? It is better you don't know all this. Because if you had to remember all these things and then you had to try and say, okay, what is going to happen next? Then there is not going to be any time left. You will only be caught up in those thoughts and you will not have time to do anything to get out of this samsara cycle. It's only when we do sadhana, when we get moksha, that we get out of this cycle of birth and death. So if you knew what has happened to you in all the past janmas, where your mind would be totally occupied with all those thoughts only, that I did like that and that's why this happened. So now I should take care not to do this so that that doesn't happen. And you will all the time be only remembering those things. So there is no time for you to do anything, any sadhana to get out of the samsara, right? Now, why is this, approach taken by Krishna? That he's saying we said, no, that for the sake of argument, let me accept that your viewpoint, that Atma is dying, is true. And he's basing his arguments upon that. Now, why does Krishna take this line of approach? Now, actually, if we look in the Indian system of philosophy, there are many different schools of thought which are there. So each school of thought has its own philosophical guidelines, its basis, and they have certain doctrines, some siddhantas are there. So based on that, they will argue and they will put up their point. So out of these 12 schools of thought, there are 6 which are belonging to the Astikavada. Astikavada means the school of thought which believes in the Vedas. Now, many times we use these words, no? We say somebody is astic or we say somebody is nastic. And we think that astika means somebody who is believing in God and nastika means somebody who does not believe in God. So actually, if you look at the meaning, it is not about whether they believe in God or they don't believe in God. It is rather about whether they are accepting the Vedas as the authority or not. So any school of thought which accepts the Vedas as the authority, as the pramana, they are the Astika school of thought. And then there are the other ones which do not accept Veda as authority, like Buddhism, Jainism, and all these. So those are the Nastikavada. They are the Nastik school of thought. So now out of these Nastika systems, there is one system which is called as Charvakvada. So in that Charvakvada, what they say is that there is nothing separate called as Atma and Sharira. Body and Atma are not different things. They are the same things. So actually in that Charvakvada, what they say is that this one Janma which you are having, this is the only Janma. You have come to birth now and you are going to die at the end of this. So there is nothing to worry about the past or about the future. What happened previous Janma? There is no previous Janma. What is going to happen afterwards also? There is no future Janma. So now you are alive, you have got human birth. So since you are alive and you have been given the sense organs to enjoy, you enjoy. Right. In fact, there is one very famous shloka which is quoted to tell the essence of this Charvakvada. It talks about how यावत् जीवेत् सुखं जीवेत् ऋणं कृत्वा घृतं पिबेत् भूतस्य देहस्य पुनरागमनं कुतः. So what they say is, until you are alive, yavat jivet, sukham jivet, you live with all sukha. Okay. Rinam kritva ghritam pibet. Ghrita means ghee. So even if you have to take rina, even if you have to beg and borrow from people and you have to get into debt, still doesn't matter. You enjoy. Even if you have to enjoy at the cost of begging from somebody and borrowing money or whatever it may be, you drink ghee because ghee is a luxury item, isn't it? So you do that because after this deha becomes bhasma, it goes to ashes. Punaragamanam kutaha. Where do you come back to life? So that is what is called as Charvakvada. Now the beauty of our Sanatan Dharma is that we have place for all these schools of thought, right? Whether it is Astikavada or it is Nastikavada, we don't, like the Abrahamic religions, we don't believe in having just one single doctrine and everybody forcing everyone that, yes, you have to follow this only. There is space for people to disagree and everybody can follow whatever system of thought they want. And they can make whatever progress. In fact, in our shastras, they also say that, if you have so much papa, so much punya, then what kind of a family you are going to be born into, what kind of a school of thought you will accept. So there is space for all this differentiation also. So actually at the time when this Mahabharata and all was going on, there were many people who belonged to this Charvaka school of thought. So there, the concept was quite prevalent among those people who followed that Charvakvada, that atma and body are one and the same thing. So that is why Krishna is using that, thinking that, okay, Arjuna may have heard people talking about all these things. Now that is why he is also, getting swayed by those thoughts. And that is why he's thinking that body and atma is same. So he is thinking that if I kill Drona, if I kill Bhishma, then when their body is dead, then I have killed their atma and they stop existing. So maybe Arjuna is having this kind of thought process. So Krishna is saying, okay, we will assume that also, and yet it is not true. He goes on further. But now, in a way, some of the acharyas say that we can also take this. Now, Arjuna is being called as Mahabahu by Krishna, right? So Mahabahu means he is reminding Arjuna that, oh, great warrior, oh, Kshatriya. So people who were Kshatriyas, they were not followers of the Nastikvada system. They were very much followers of the Vedic system, of the Astika system. So it's as if Krishna is, in a very subtle way, he is sarcastically trying to make Arjuna aware that, O Mahabahu, O Kshatriya, O Arjuna, you are belonging to Astika school of thought. So don't talk and don't believe the thoughts which are being told in that Charvakvada. So we can say like that. Fine. So here in this shloka, Krishna has told that if you think, he's trying to tell Arjuna that if you think the Atma is constantly being born and died and that is all happening to the Atma, even then you should not grieve. So why should Arjuna not grieve like this? If this fact is true also, you should not grieve, he says. So what is that? He explains in the next shloka, in the 27th shloka. So this shloka says, Krishna says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur ध्रुवं जन्ममृतस्य च तस्माद् अपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. So he says, death is certain for one who has been born. And rebirth is inevitable. That means rebirth is also certain for the one who has died. And because of that, you should not lament over something which is inevitable, which is unavoidable. Right? So we saw in the previous shloka, Krishna is saying, even if we assume like you, that, like you think, if we assume that the Atma is going to die at the end of the birth, at the end of this life, then still you should not grieve. Why? Because For someone who has been born, you know very well that is going to die. Similarly, for something which has died, it is inevitable, it is unavoidable that definitely a new birth will come. And because of this fact, you should not lament over these things which are unavoidable, because it is not in your control. So, the minute somebody is born, that death is also certain, isn't it? So, if this is the case, you know that Bhishma and Drona are there now. So, you know that they are going to die at some point of time. Whether they are dying because of you in the war or because of some other reason, they are going to die ultimately. So, why are you lamenting? Why are you grieving? Why are you feeling sorrow over the fact that they are going to die? Right? So, what is the meaning of saying this, that death is certain and rebirth is certain? That saying that death is certain is that part which is part of that Charvakvada, that something is born, it is going to die. But Krishna is taking that thought further and giving a deeper idea here, that we say something is born and something dies, but it is equally true that there is again birth which is going to happen. So, by giving certain physical examples, the acharyas try to make us understand this. Now, whatever we have, anything which is existing in this world, some matter, whenever it undergoes some change, it changes its form, but it does not get destroyed completely, right? So, like take the example of a dhoti or take the example of a pot. Now, if you take the pot example, you have a mud pot. That mud pot is existing as a mud pot. It is a pot made out of mud. Now, when that pot breaks, okay, at that point of time, when the pot breaks, there are two states which are present at that point. One is the pot in broken condition. So the pot, which was an entire item, got broken. So that is the destruction part. At the same time, because the pot broke, what did it break into? It broke into those clay particles, which are the mud. So that breaking of the pot, which was an act of destruction, led to the creation of the clay particles. So that is a creative process. So whenever there is destruction, simultaneously there is also creation of something. Similarly, Krishna is trying to explain that when we say a person dies, right? Somebody is dead. Then what do we mean? That state of life has ended and the state of death has begun. So that is for the body. And when it comes to this kind of a thing, destruction and creation go hand in hand. Now, together only they will happen. So, if there is going to be destruction of this body of Bhishma, simultaneously there will be creation of something else. Now, what is this destruction and creation that we are talking about? This Deha has fallen. There will be another Deha to which that Atma of Bhishma is going to go. And it will then do that process. Right. So, when this is going to happen simultaneously, why should you get agitated over something which you know is going to happen? This is the question that Krishna is asking to Arjuna. So, if something changes the form, that is one way it is destruction, the other way it is creation. So, both of these always go together. So, you know that if something is born, it is going to die. And you know that when something dies, there is going to be a new state for that. We have already seen in the previous shlokas, Krishna has explained all this in detail to Arjuna. He told about how that person changes the clothes. So you throw away the old clothes and you wear new clothes. Similarly, that Atma is going to cast away this body. That doesn't mean that the Atma is also dead. It means that Atma has changed its form. It went from this form to another form. So you know that destruction of this body means there is also going to be creation of another body for that Atma. So when these things are together and simultaneous and you know that that is going to happen, you know something like death is certain, why should you grieve over it? That is the question that actually Krishna is asking Arjuna. So he is telling him that when we know that something is born, death is definitely going to come. When something dies, we know the rebirth also is definitely going to be there. So if you understand this and you accept this, then where is the question of lamentation? Where is the question of grieving? Because you know that irrespective of what you feel about it, it is going to happen. So why should you waste your energy in feeling sorrow over something which is inevitable, something which is unavoidable? Why should you lament over that? Is the question that Krishna is trying to make Arjuna to understand. Now, out of all this discussion, what is it that is there for us to learn, that maybe we can pick up some ideas from here and make our life a little more smoother? The first thing we can try to think about is, are we living our life as per Astikavada, or are we living our life as per Nastikavada? Right? I told in brief that Nastikavada is something where we do not accept the Vedas as authority. And Astikavada is when you accept the Vedas as authority. So if we accept the Vedas as authority, then our living should be in keeping with whatever is prescribed in the Vedas. Okay, there are certain things that because of this time, we are not able to actually follow, right? And certain lifestyle methods have changed over the years. That is different aspect. As far as possible, when it comes to following the moral principles, we must live by whatever the Shastras tell is the right behavior. We must not depart from the path that is prescribed by the Shastras to us. Now, why is this important? Because we are doing sadhana to get moksha. We are doing sadhana to reach closer to God. And the simplest way to please somebody is by doing something which they like. And how do we know what God likes and what He doesn't like? Because whatever is His desire that people should do is what has been told in the Vedas. So the Vedas, the Upanishads, they give all the guidelines for what a person should do in their life, how they should lead their life, how they can please the Lord. So if we live our life as per those principles of what the Shastras are teaching, then definitely we are going closer to God. Are we behaving like the Charvakas? Are we acting as if just, okay, I have this one life, I've got this human birth, I'm going to enjoy to the maximum, and be ready to compromise in any way, on any principles, in any manner? All I want is to make sure that I'm comfortable, I am happy, I'm enjoying at all times. Is that our way of living? We need to reflect on this. If that is what we have been doing, then we must understand that we have slipped into Charvakvada. We need to live our life as per what is told in the Vedas, along the moral guidelines and principles which are given, the dharma, what is told in the Shastras. According to that, we need to live our life. That is the first thing that we can think about. Second thing is that point that Arjuna says that I don't know what happened in the past or what will happen in the future. Similarly, for us also, we don't know about past janmas, we don't know about future janmas. But in this janma itself, things which happened in our past, we brood over those. Either if there were good things in our past, then we think about, oh, how those times were good, now how things are bad, and you wish that those good times came back, right? And you wish that this situation would not be like this, like that. Then there are some people for whom the past has been bad or somebody has hurt them, then they will keep brooding over that and think that, okay, this happened because of that person, they did this to me. So like this, we brood over the past. Many times we spend so much of our energy in worrying over what is going to come in the future, as if we are able to control everything in the future. We make such elaborate plans. I'm not saying that we should not have a plan, but we must be prepared that at any time, if my plan interferes with God's plan for me, I should realize that I have to accept whatever is God's plan for me. That plan is definitely going to be far better than what I planned with my short-sighted vision, isn't it? So we worry over the future, we brood over the past. Instead of that, we must learn to focus our energy on dealing with whatever is our present situation, living in the present moment, right? Being in this, what is called as the Vartamana Kala, living only at as of this moment, and in every moment, whatever be the situation, never losing focus on the Lord. If we can make efforts to do that, then definitely we will be on the right path. Then we talked about how there is a change in the situation. Something is destroyed, something is created. So, like that, there are all these dual things which go together. So, joy is there, sorrow is there. Now, we need to accept that these both will be there at all times in our life. And whether it is joy or it is sadness, it is a temporary state. Today I am happy. I should not get carried away and lost in that happiness and think that that happiness is going to continue forever. I should be aware that yes, this happiness is going to end at some point of time and there will be sorrow which comes my way. Similarly, when we are in a depressed state or we feel sorrowful or we are grieving for something, we must not lose our hope, because even this sorrowful state, even this situation which is giving me sorrow is after all temporary. This is also going to change for the better, right? So we need to have an acceptance that both these things will keep coming and going. See, it's like when you they give the example for a parent. Okay, if there is somebody who has newly become a parent, then when that child gets some small little illness or some health upset, then that new parent is very much worked up over that, because they think that, oh, this is some really damaging thing which has happened and how will I deal with it, and they don't know what to do with it and they are totally panicked. But suppose there is somebody who has brought up some 3 4 children, then that person knows that, okay, this is all a part of that process and there is nothing to worry about it, right? Similarly, the more we grow experienced in our life, the more we need to understand that we need to look back and see that there were times when I had happiness, there were times when I had sorrow, and none of those times lasted forever. So these will keep coming, going, coming, going. And because they keep coming and going, that means they will go on changing, definitely. So thinking that it will be just one way means that we are going to set ourselves up for disappointment. So we must accept that both these will keep coming and going. And with that acceptance, go through whatever situation is there in your life at that particular point of time. That we need to try and adopt in our lives. Then the next point is about acceptance of death of a loved one. So here Krishna has told that something which is born is bound to die. Something which is dead is bound to have rebirth. So if we are trying to understand this in the real sense, if we learn to look at the atma as being eternal and separate from this body which has died now, then somewhere we must learn to deal with whatever emotion comes when we are losing somebody very close to us. So if we are able to accept that, right? So many times what happens is, if there is someone who's very close to us, emotionally we are close to that person. When that person passes away, we feel a lot of hurt, we feel a lot of sorrow, and we are, drowning in that feeling. But if we learn to accept this viewpoint that the Atma is eternal, that physical body has gone, but that Atma is eternal and it has gone to its next further life, then our ability to accept that detachment, what we need to develop, will be an easier process. And most importantly, we need to understand that we've got this human birth. And we've got this human birth where we have got the opportunity to hear about Krishna. We've got this opportunity to be a part of some activity which leads us closer to him. We have got satsanga. So such great fortune we have. Now we don't know whatever we are doing in this janma, we don't know what fruits it will have. Whatever else we may have done in past janma, we don't know what fruits are waiting for us. So we don't know what is going to happen at the end of this birth. So in this birth itself, I have to do sadhana to get moksha. With that kind of a urgency, we need to realize our good fortune, and we need to keep doing maximum efforts to intensify our sadhana. So these are some of the things that we need to take from these shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita. It may appear like as if Krishna is telling the same thing again and again, but he's telling it from different viewpoints. And every single viewpoint that he is giving, there is some new thought process that we can start in our mind. So we can go into that and keep thinking over these things and use all this to improve the quality of our sadhana. So I hope and pray that Krishna will bless us to be able to do this. Let us now offer Kritagnyata. And after that, I will take some question which has come last time. So first we will offer gratitude, Kritagnyata, at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Namaskar. So we have a few minutes left. So there was a question which Zarnaji asked after the last satsang. And her question was that last time we saw the story of Janaka Raja. So what she was asking is that now Janaka's actions, when you look at from his personal viewpoint, right, as a sadhaka, that is fine. So it was okay for him to sit quietly in the ashrama while there was news of burning happening in the kingdom. But Zarnaji is asking that he was also a king. So was it not his duty to protect his people? Okay, the subjects of the kingdom and also his family. So was it not like as if he was shirking his responsibility, as if he was, going against what was his duty at that point of time? So to this question, there are different ways in which we can think about it. One is for somebody who is such a realized soul like Janaka, he's at that very highest level of detachment where there has been, it's not only about him being detached, but there is also a total, complete understanding of the fact that ultimately whatever happens is by God's grace. Right. So when to that level you think that you are a madhyam of the Lord, you are just a channel for the God to act through you, then you will be able to understand that at every moment, whatever I am doing is not because I want to do it, but it is because it is God who is doing that thing through me. So at that high level of what he was as a Rajarshi, it is bound to happen that there is no longer every single act that Janaka does will be such that it is purely by the inspiration of the Lord. So there is no question of him doing something. So at that point of time, if he was not inspired to get up and run around and do things, he would not have done them because he is completely acting only as a channel of the Lord. So that is one way of looking at it. And how this comes by complete acceptance of the fact that I am not any kind of a doer here. That whatever has to be done, whatever I have done in the past, whatever I'm going to do in the future, whatever is in the present, everything is God doing through me. So he will only guide me about how I have to take what action at that particular point of time. Right? So that is for him, that was the state. Now, for us, that may not be the state. Definitely, it is not the state because we are doing things by our own, mind and intellect. We are trying to think. So, what we can do, we must pray for guidance to be able to know what to be done in the right condition. For somebody who is like a today present day ruler, a present day politician, definitely they are not at the level of Janaka. So that will not hold true. So there, if they don't do, you can say that they are shirking their responsibility. But for somebody like Janaka, it cannot be told that he was giving up his responsibility because his whole way of ruling, his whole entire activity in all his life actions is to be just a madhyam for the Lord to act through him. So that is one way of understanding that, right? So this is what came to my mind at this point of time as the answer to that question. There's one interesting story which is told, I'll just see, I think I have 3 minutes left. So there was this one very great devotee of the Lord called Sridhar Swami. And I mean, he wanted to take sannyas. And he was a very, strong devotee, very great bhakta like. And he wanted to take sannyas. But then his wife was pregnant. So he waited, like he thought that, okay, let the child be born. Then after that, I will go away. Because how to, desert the wife at this time. Now he waited. Unfortunately, what happened? His wife gave birth to a child, but she died during the childbirth. So now he got the thought that if I desert this child, who will take care of it? And he just, with that thought, he was just thinking, and he sat there in his house, in his hut. Now, suddenly what happened is, there was one baby lizard which dropped down from the roof of that house. And it was a baby lizard, okay? So it was so tiny, it fell down. And then there was one small, ant moving around there, and this baby lizard put its tongue out and ate that. So it fell, but it got something at that point of time to feed its belly. Seeing that, Sridhar Swami got this idea in his head that God makes arrangements for every being's care. So why we should think that we are the doers, right? So thinking like that, he decided that, okay, I will go, I will take sannyas and God will take care of this child. So he went away. After some many years, like some 10, 15 years, he came back to that same village. He went here, there. He became very great in his sadhana. He became even bigger bhakta. And he came back. He happened to come back to the same village. And he heard that there was a young child, a young boy there who was just about 15, 20 years old, right? And but he was a very great jnani. He was a saint. So Sridhar Swami went to meet that boy. And then he heard people talking that, see, this boy, he was abandoned by his father just after he was born. And because there was nobody to take care of him, there was a Gurukul nearby. They brought up that child, right? And now that child became such a great God realized soul. He became a saint. So Sridhar Swami heard all these people talking like this. And then when he went and saw, that boy had exactly the features of Sridhar Swami. So who was that boy? It was the same son whom Sridhar Swami had deserted, so-called deserted, right? So God has plans for everybody. Sridhar Swami thought that if I myself had been there and brought up this boy, I can't guarantee that I would have brought him up to become a saint. But see God's plan. He took care of this much better than I would have ever been able to. So this story is sometimes told to make us aware that it is ultimately God who provides. I think in previous satsangs, we have also seen about some story of Shivaji and the insects which were, or the frogs which were under a stone and like that. Maybe we can remember those again and we will be able to understand this concept better. So we've run out of time totally. It's going to end any moment. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending the satsang. We will catch up again next Thursday. Namaskar.